What's going on, everybody? Marcus back again, here to chime in on something that I witnessed on the UFC fights last night, which I thought were really, really interesting. For those of you who don't know, I am a former amateur mixed martial artist, former jiu-jitsu practitioner, amateur kickboxer, and I spent the last 4 or 5 years, maybe actually 6 years, cornering a lot of my friends in boxing, kickboxing, and even a little MMA cornering. So when this incident happened and blew up, it really drove home to me because of my experiences both as a fighter and as a cornerman. So I want you guys to watch this clip if you guys aren't aware. It's Max Rohskopf basically quitting on the stool to his coach Robert Drysdale. So let's go ahead, let's take a look at the clip, and let's get this going.
Call it.
Listen.
Call it.
Huh?
Call it.
You're gonna beat this guy, Max. We got this.
All right, so I'm just gonna clip right here. He's telling his corner, call it. He's not saying, I like, his first instinct isn't I quit. It's please, Robert, get me out of this fight. I'm done. Just throw in the towel for me, because he was getting his butt kicked, and he's saying Robert Drysdale is like, no, you can do this. You can do this.
You couldn't beat this guy. Listen, listen.
Rob, call it.
No, we got this, Max. Okay, stop it. We got this. Okay, breathe. Okay, catch your breath.
No.
We're gonna beat this guy.
Call
Keep it on your feet. You're gonna clinch.
No, call it.
So as you can see, Robert is trying to motivate his fighter to stay in the fight. He has a vested interest in this fighter's performance. He also is probably very attached to this guy. And you can see right there, Robert Drysdale is like, oh crap. Like he doesn't quite know what to do. Now, Robert Drysdale is one of the most successful jiu-jitsu practitioners out there. He's also a great MMA coach. He's had Forrest Griffin under his wing, Frank Mir, Dan Hardy, Johanna Jędrzejczyk, Vitor Belfort, Vanderlei Silva. I mean, he's had some big names under his tutelage. So he's got a lot of experience here. I don't quite know whether he's had an experience like this before, where his fighter is just begging him to call it, saying, I can't do this anymore. I want out of it. And you can see Drysdale's reaction is he doesn't quite know how to respond after a while. So let's keep watching the rest of the clip.
You sure you're gonna lose, Max?
Yeah.
He's asking if he's sure.
I don't want to do this anymore.
No, we got this, Max.
No,
You're a champion.
I don't have it.
You're a champion. Stop it.
I don't have it.
Stop it. You're a champion.
So now he's kind of telling him, hey, you're a champion. Stop being a pussy, yada, yada, yada. He's like, I don't have it. I don't want to do this anymore. I want out of here.
You're a champion. We're going to finish this round on top of it under the decision, okay? Get on top of him. Out wrestle him. We got this.
Let's go. One good right here. You can't. You want to fight or no?
He wants to call it.
He wants to call it.
So right at the end, right when the 1 minute rest period finishes, the inspector rightfully stepping in and saying, hey, do you want to keep going? Because he can hear this. The inspectors will monitor what's going on in between rounds with the corner and the fighter. And Drysdale finally says he wants to call it. That's it. He wants to call it. So Robert Drysdale's getting a lot of criticism for this. And I want to discuss it. So that way we're fair to Drysdale. We're also fair to the fighter. And we're also fair to everyone else's opinion on this. So my opinion on this is Robert Drysdale rightfully has a vested interest in this fighter's career. He's probably invested monetarily, time-wise, and has probably developed a relationship with Max Rohskopf. Secondly, coach's job is to motivate you to fight. I mean, I've been in training before where I wanted to quit, and my coach pushed me while I was training, and that was it. They got me through it. In fact, one of my fights that I won, in between the second and third round, I was winning both rounds, but my legs were just jello. It was so much like fighting. My legs were just jello. I was tired. I wasn't ready to quit, but I was just tired. And my coach asked me, how are you? I says, oh, my legs are a little shot. And he's like, I don't want to hear shit. Get your ass out there and finish this fight. And I ended up winning the third round, and I won a unanimous decision all 3 rounds. So I understand where he's coming from, trying to motivate his fighter. But you also have to understand where Max Rohskopf is coming. He's the one taking the damage in there. He's the one, risking his life, risking his brain cells out there. And he's begging Robert to stop it for him. Now, as a fighter, no fighter wants to sit on the stool and quit. That's the last thing you want to do is quit in the fight, right? Like in between rounds, like you quit. Most fighters will know by the second or third round whether or not they're going to win or not, and they end up just kind of like, phoning it into the third round just so they can lose a decision and not look like a quitter and not get finished. But in this case, he's asking his corner to do it for him. He's like, please, Rob, just throw in the towel for me, basically take the heat. And this is where I step in and say a cornerman is a very, very responsible position. It's a very difficult position. You have less than 1 minute to evaluate what just happened in the previous 5 minutes or more and motivate your fighter and also educate your fighter on what to do next. In the middle of a fight in which he's sweating, he's tired, and he's taken damage to his brain, he's possibly loopy. It is a very difficult decision. Rohskopf throws a wrench in all that by saying, I want to quit. So now Robert has got twofold. He's got something going on in his brain where he's like, okay, now I have to motivate my fighter to win the next round. And then all of a sudden he wants to quit. So I have a little sympathy for Robert Drysdale because he doesn't quite know how to respond. You can tell he's like stunned. Like he's never been in this. Maybe he's been in this position before. Maybe he hasn't. But it's very clear that he doesn't know what to do. And he's got less than a minute to kind of get his bearings, right? Which is hard, but that's also your job as a cornerman, right? It's your job to do these kinds of things. But I do have a little sympathy for him because it's not the easiest thing in the world to do. At the end of the day, I think that clearly Robert made the right call, saying he telling the inspector he wants to call it. He did eventually get to where he needed to be, which was look out for the safety of his fighter, to quit the fight and to let him know that they want to call it. But also for the fighter as well, like if you're asking your corner to call it and your corner won't call it, you got to, now it's like, okay, well now my corner's not taking care of me. I got to take care of myself and go to the inspector and go. So I think that this is a problem in mixed martial arts. It's a problem of ego. It's a problem of fighters trying to convey a message and not being quite able to convey to their cornerman what they actually want. These are discussions that probably should be had that are hard to have. I mean, the fighter's got to look out for himself too. It's like call it. Like he's begging Drysdale to call it, right? Instead of going, hey, inspector, I'm done. So at this stage of the game, I would say that we've got a lot to learn from this incident, and I think that this is an incident that I'm kind of glad happened. I think it does expose some issues that need to be addressed. I think that fighters need to convey to their cornermen, hey, if I give you this signal, can you just throw in the towel for me? Because I think that's okay, right? I think that a lot of times cornermen should save their fighters from themselves and maybe take a little of the heat in case the fighter wants to quit. I can recall one time I was cornering my friend in a boxing match, and he took the fight on 4 days notice for a friend of his that was running a promotion, and was going up against a guy who was pretty clearly a more skilled opponent. And towards the end of the second round, he takes like a 4 or 5 punch combination that puts him out on his feet basically against the ropes, and the referee steps in and renders a standing 8 count. Now at this point, I literally had the towel in my hand ready to throw it, and my buddy survived the standing 8 and actually went to a decision. And it's funny, he tells me afterwards, he's like, man, after I got rocked, I was ready to tell the referee to stop the fight. Like, hey, I'm done, man. I'm done. But he says, I couldn't bring myself to do it. And I said, man, I was going to throw in the towel. And he's like, yeah, I probably would have killed you if you had thrown in the towel, but then I would have thanked you. So ever since that moment, I felt like man, I wish I had thrown in that towel because I let my friend go out there for another 3 minutes and get his head punched in, and took unnecessary damage when all I had to do was throw in the towel and just dealt with whatever wrath. And that's the thing as a fighter too, right? Like, you have to understand is that when you go out there and fight and you've got a cornerman, they might throw in the towel. Maybe you don't agree with it, maybe you do agree, but sometimes that decision's out of your hands. Most of the time, your fight result is out of your hands. It's either in a judge's hands, or it's in your corner's hands, or it's in the referee's hands. So it's a good incident that I think happened. I think it's good that it happened in that we can learn something from this incident. So for all you fighters out there, all you cornermen out there, all you fans out there, there's a lot to this story, but I would say that, and I think obviously it took a little while for Drysdale to get to the right decision, and he was trying to figure out the best way to handle this, and he just couldn't. Because so many emotions are running through his head. But I think the lesson is we need to start having these conversations. Fighters and cornermen need to have these conversations with each other, so that way they get on the same page. So that way when stuff like this happens and he just looks up at his corner and says, call the fight, corner just can ask, are you sure? Yeah, I'm sure. All right, we'll call the fight, and just save ourselves the extended argument. So that's all I really wanted to chime in and say. Thank you guys so much for listening in, and I'll catch you guys next time.